When I was 12, my godfather passed away and left me a triplex, had a note on it. So my parents were basically the property managers. We didn't know anything about real estate, didn't know what we were doing, dealt with Section 8. That was a fiasco. Inherited tenants, that was a fiasco. And I was 12, so did that from 12. Um, I didn't get the property in my name until I was 25, according to the will. So they helped me throughout that whole journey. Purchased the property in Marrero that I was living in. So then Katrina hits, get transferred to Houston. So now my property in Marrero becomes a rental property because I'm thinking maybe I'll come back to New Orleans. So I'm gonna live in Houston. So I kept that as a rental. 2006. Father got sick, ended up having to sell the triplex, just because it was just too much to handle for him, and I wasn't even in the state. So fast forward a little bit, moved to Houston, bought my property. I was living in Houston. Then I bought another property that was pretty close by in the center of Houston, and that was in 2007. So 2008, the whole market dropped. So now I have a property that I planned on moving into in downtown Houston. That went completely haywire because of the market. So I have that as a rental. So now I have the sold triplex in New Orleans, which was sold. I have a rental property in Marrero, which I was still at one point thinking I'm coming back. Have the house that I was living in Houston. Now I have a rental property in Houston because the market crashed. Then I guess me and her got together. And that's when everything went crazy. I ended up selling the house in Marrero. One of the main reasons was because it was too far of a drive. So I was managing out of Houston. I had a property manager. I mean, it was charging me $100 just to cut the grass. So it was just, pricing was just way out of line. Property management fees were way out of line. And I didn't know any better. So, and I couldn't count on anybody really here that I knew that could do any of the stuff to manage it. So I had a house in Houston. We bought a house together. That was right before we got married, so I guess 2012 around there. Bought that house, sold the house I was living in Houston. Probably sold it too soon. Now it's gone skyrocket. But anyway, sold that property. Sold the one in Marrero because it was too far away. So now I'm stuck with no house in Louisiana. I had a rental house in Houston and a house I was living in Houston. And then we're working basically corporate America, saving money, and decided we were just stressed out and quit our job. So
Yeah. And
she
so,
can take over from there.
and then, so from there, fast forward to 2019, January. So this whole time, everything was unintentional. Like we didn't want to be landlords. We made great money in corporate America. And no kids, no debt. So we were just living the life, and we didn't think about real estate. And so 2019, we were burnt out. We were burnt out, and oh man, we're gonna get intimate real quick. So yes, in 2019, we were so burnt out. Him and I looking at each other, and we're like, man, we're falling further apart from each other too, personally, as husband and wife. And so, one night we're just looking at each other. So the rental's always been there. And so we looked at each other one night, January 2019, and we're like, we need to do something, to save us. That was our priority at the time. Like we want to save us first. And so, and we were reminiscing, because, Kurt is half Norwegian and half Honduran. So he was reminiscing. He's like, man, I'm daydreaming. I wish I could just go to Norway, spend a month with my uncle, and fish every day with him. And we're laying in bed, and I looked at him, and I was like, why not? We don't have kids. We don't have debt. We literally have nothing. And him and I, we always lived below our means. Everything is straight to the savings. So I looked at him like, why not? And he looked at me and he was like, what? Yeah, okay, why not? And he was like, let's put our 2 weeks in. Let's go. And he's like, and he's done this to me a couple of times, so I'm like, no, you're not for real. He's like, no, I'm for real. He's like, I'm I'm really burnt out. And aren't you too? I'm like, yeah.
So
Um,
so every vacation that we went on, I drag her to a real estate office because I don't want to leave wherever I'm at. So
everywhere.
yeah, so every time we come back from vacation, I'm all hyped up on buying some property, whether it's in Mexico, Costa Rica,
Yeah.
you name it.
Yeah. So,
So
I thought he was pulling my leg. I'm like, no. Next day we went for a walk. We came home. So that was embedded. We came home, we went for a walk that afternoon, and he looked at me and he was like, let's do it. Let's put in our 2 weeks tomorrow. And I'm like, you for sure, you for real this time? He's like, I'm sure it's time. So next day I'm at work, I'm like texting him, I'm writing it up. He was like, turn it in. I'm like, I'm about to hit send. He's like, send it. I was like, oh, dang, my director just emailed me back. She wants to see me in her office in 30 minutes. He's like, go tell her. And so that's when it came back. And this was when the unintentional kind of turned intentional for us, because I said, what are we going to do with our house? We don't know. We're going to come back. We're going to have this adventure together. We were thinking maybe be on the road for 6 months. I told him, he's like 3 months, we're coming back. And I said, no, we're not coming back. Let's do 6 months on the road from Asia to Europe. We'll visit your family. I want us to pick, because of our work, we're headhunted anywhere. So I told him, let's pick up a contract somewhere in Asia or Europe. I'm good. They pay us well in like a awesome city somewhere, anywhere in Europe and Asia, we'll stay. And 6 months, he's like, okay. Well, one of my best friend came to the house to kind of like, hang out. And she's like, you guys got to pack up as if you're going to leave forever. She's like, because once you catch that traveling bug, she's like, that happened to me. And I went 6 years. And the only reason I came back because my mom's sick, And so I looked at him, I'm like, well, let's Airbnb our house. Let's set it up to Airbnb. Let's take all the sentimental things out of the house, which was very few. Kurt and I, we are not attached to any material things at all. And so I said, let's leave things in the house that we don't care if they steal it or break it, and put it on Airbnb. And we were thinking maybe we'll get it rented out a few days, a month, just enough to cover utilities. But we're planners. So we had actually set aside money for 6 months of traveling and 6 months of bills in the US for our home and everything, our expenses. So that way, so we said, hey, whatever we make on the Airbnb, that offsets it and more money toward our traveling. So we left, we cleaned up the house and we're like Airbnb ready. We left before the photographer came. So that rental that Kurt mentioned that we still had in Houston, we have a property manager. I said, hey, Nancy, can you get the photographer over to Upshur, our house, and do photos for us that we want to put on Airbnb? She's like, okay. She took care of it for us. We got on the road. I was in Cambodia. We were in Cambodia, and we're doing crash course on like how to Airbnb. Right. And I'm like, what's the subject line? Like, what kind of pictures would optimize, like views and people to click on it. Right. So we're doing this crash course in Battambang, Cambodia. And I went live at 2 a.m. And then keep in mind, we're thinking we're going to rent it out like 4 or 5 days a week, enough to pay electric bills, keep all the meters running. I went live 2 a.m. We were awakened by 6 a.m. Ping, 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 ping. We're like, what? What's going on? They're booking our house. And we're like, I woke him up and I'm like, hey, our house booked like 2 weekends already. He was like, what you mean? I was like, look at it. He said, is it real? And literally from then, panic came on, because we're like, we left, we set the house up as best as we could, but protocol-wise, process, we didn't have anything in place. And so that was when we had our cleaner, and that was when we kind of put things together, momentum, spoke to my sister, and Larry figured out like a way to do it. But so we were on the road. We end up, okay, keep in mind, he was like, no, we come back 3 months, right? Day 2 into our trip, this journey, day 2, he's like, I'm never going back. If we run out of our money, I'm going to sell my body. He's like, I'm going to sell my body before we have to go back to corporate America. And I'm like, I don't think we have to do that. Me too.
Needless to say, I didn't get much for it.
Yeah, I was like, no, they'll pay you. They'll pay you, just not for you to do anything, you know? But literally day two, and we're like, well, if that's the case, we gotta figure out what we gotta do, you know? And so basically, we end up being on the road a year and a half, and by month 2 of our traveling, we were on this island, Koh Lanta in Thailand. And he was like, what we gotta do, we gotta brainstorm. And we decide to go ahead and move to Vietnam. We're like, we're gonna move to Da Nang, which is like a beach city in Vietnam. My godbrother from Houston, he's like bartender extraordinaire. He was already moving to Saigon. I called him and his fiance. I'm like, hey, why don't you move to Da Nang with us? They're like, what was going on? Can you let us sleep overnight? Next morning, like, we're game. So the 4 of us moved to Da Nang together. Kid you not, because we rented a house, and so from there, well, Vietnam, we were intending to stay to live there, and we were going to partner with him to open up a daiquiri shop named Nola. But the back of our mind, because Vietnam, where we were, my family in Vietnam, they're kind of a construction material supplier, and my uncle's a GC. So we had all the intention to develop there. But then what happened was we came back, well, COVID hit. In Southeast Asia, COVID hit Southeast Asia before the rest of the world even knew. So we were living there, all borders of Asia were closed, but the rest of the world was still going. So we were importing machineries to do this bar, right? And so we couldn't get anything in, not by ocean, not by train. Even you get up to the borders on bus, they won't let you take anything. There's nothing open. So Kurt and I said, well, let's go ahead and come back to the state, grab some more clothes, hug our friends and family. By then we have been gone for almost 2 years. So almost 2 years. 1 week before we were due back to Da Nang, Vietnam decided to shut their borders. We weren't gonna go back. And that was when Kurt and I were like, we need to be productive. We're productive people. We gotta work. My sister is an investor in Texas. So I call her up. I was like, sis, let's do a project together. She's like, okay. Yeah. So I was like, how is it that us sisters, we're brilliant, we're smart, we're hustler, we're hardworking, we never do anything together. And so truly that was, from there, it spiraled, because we're like, okay, so within a week, between me and my 2 sisters, we bought our first flip property in Houston. And we loved it. Kurt, he was
some backtrack behind it.
Yeah.
So her sister's been trying to get us to invest for years. But she's one of the type of people that just knows the process. She's like, just give me your money and I'll do everything. And I'm like, well, that doesn't work for me. I gotta know what's the process, how it works, lay it all out. So for years she's been saying, oh, just invest and we'll do something. So when this comes up, I'm like, I don't know about this anymore. So so she's like, well, we're gonna do it regardless, whether you want to do it or not. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So
because I have my IRA, because Kurt is we're so different. I'm the one that's like, I calculate the risk, and there's no definite answer. If the answer is that easy, everyone would do it. But I take into consideration all the risks first, and then I roll the dice, and that's all we can do. But him, our personality different. Kurt's a planner, and he has to kind of see things out, and it has to be 99.9% before Kurt jump in. But I felt so strongly about it. And plus I wanted to do something with my sister. So I told Kurt, I'm like, listen, I got my IRA. So with or without you, I'm going to do this with my sister. And he didn't want to miss out. And he was like, really? So the next morning he was like, okay, let's do it with our funds. So we did, and believe it or not, he fell in love with the whole process more than I did. Kurt is like a super handyman. He's not a handyman by trade. He's like oil and gas, AI software guy, but he has more tools than all the contractors we know.
In one truck. In one truck.
In his truck. You should see his truck. He's 2-3 of everything in the garage, like he got these made, the big tables. Oh, what do you have? Even the carpenter don't have that, and he has that. I'm like, what you gonna do with it?
I don't know.
But he actually ended up falling in love. We both felt we loved creating, and we fell in love with it. And we're like, well, we can really do this.
So actually, without her sister, I think her sister kind of gave me the ease of mind to actually jump in and go with it. Because she was literally the one that kind of got us started the motion. So without her, I mean, to this day, I'll say, without her, I probably would.
And what year we talking right now? Because you guys did a lot in a short period of
Yeah,
time. So the first flip is, let's timestamp that right now. The first flip in Houston is
It's not the end of 2019.
No, our journey, we took off traveling 2019. COVID hit the US
like March
2020.
20.
2020.
Yeah, so the end of 2020 is when we did the first flip house.
We sold it. And oh, by the way, it was great. Well, no, we started like in summer of 2020 with my sister.
Mhm.
Man, in and out. She had a process and we loved it. Watching her doing everything. And we were in and out that house 6 weeks. And it was like a gut. Like it was incredible. And it was like, man, COVID rate was like 2%. So that house was sold within 3 days. And we're like, and I'll share the numbers. So we end up netting 50 grand on that project. We bought it for Houston is more expensive. We bought it for like 175. We dumped maybe 50 something on it. And, we sold, we really, that first offer came in 3 days later, 50 grand net, we calculated, we're like, we'll take it, And so we were thinking, we're like, that was when like the light bulb came on. It was a lot of work. I was like, but man, 50 grand, 6 weeks, come closing time. It was literally from construction, renovation to when we closed was 3 months and we made 50 grand. And we're just like, yeah, we could do this, But yeah, but after that house, what ended up happening is New Orleans here, Kurt's from here, my family's from Houston. And his best friend here is an investor too. And his best friend been trying to do something with him for years. And so I told Kurt, since he was 18, he joined the Marines. And as an adult, he's never spent that kind of time here with family. Yeah. We're very big on family. And so I told him, I was like, well, let's take this show to New Orleans and let's partner up with your best friend, Zoo. And then at the same time, you can spend more time with your family in New Orleans. And he's like,
who, by the way, is not here right now.
yeah, he tried to make it.
I'll have a conversation with him later.
I know he's missing Kurt Butte. Yeah, but yeah. So when we spoke to him, he's like, "You guys for real?" Like, yeah. So we made the move so we came here. So we be near family, and we were so excited. Within 3 months, we bought 3 houses, and literally, and ever since then, that was literally how everything started.
So tell us about that safety net, right? So for couples and partners, period, where one of them has a W-2, in this case, both of y'all had a W-2. So what was the safety net that made y'all comfortable enough to say, let's just do it? Was it, dividends from a market stock? Did y'all have cash flow in the background, or was it just strictly reserves? Tell us about the safety net that gave y'all the confidence to do that. How would you describe it?
I think we had reserve.
Okay.
Our rental property was basically at one point breaking even or make a little bit. It wasn't anything major. Airbnb kind of just paid for itself.
Yeah.
It was basically it made a little.
We net, I think, with our Airbnb after everything, we net every month like $1,500, $1,600 on just one house, on just our main property. The other property net, it wasn't that much, but keep in mind, we were living in Vietnam at the time and living in a 3-story house in the middle of the city. And I mean, we were bottle popping, we're out eating, hanging out. And as a couple, our monthly expenses in Da Nang was like between $2,000 to $2,500 a month. So having just one property netting every month $1,500, $1,600. So basically out of our reserves, we're literally just pulling out maybe $1,000 a month. So it wasn't anything. So for us, it was perfect. Oh, and by the way, I went on the Airbnb our house a year and a half in. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, and we were in Asia, so a 12 hours difference, and it was stressful. When it rained, it poured, and so we got to a point. I start thinking. I was like, well, I told Kurt, I was like, let's look up what the furnished rental market is like in Houston. So when I looked on the MLS, there was nothing. And there was a demand for it in Houston. And in our area, it was one other house, but like it was so ugly. So it was like, I was like, you know what? Let's contact our property manager and let her run the comps. And instead of doing Airbnb, let's just turn this STR into a midterm rental, furnished, and see what that numbers look like. So she came back to us with the numbers, and I did the analysis because Airbnb, you're paying all utilities, all the amenities, the fees, everything. So by the time I did the analysis, we actually, if we did midterm rentals, we actually made like $75 more a month, completely hands off. I'm like, oh, it's a no brainer. So that's when we completely switched Airbnb off and turned it into midterm rentals because it was furnished. Oh, it was incredible. And that was a whole learning experience for us because as a midterm rental and as a furnished property, our clientele was completely different. We were only dealing with corporates because they were doing corporate transfers. And we were doing a lot with insurance companies because, a house burned down. They need to, instead of paying like hotel rooms for a whole family, however many rooms that is per night, it was cheaper for them and their customer loved it because they get to live in a home. So we actually got a couple contracts just working with insurance company, and that was amazing too. So that was really interesting. So it was furnished.
And for that, we didn't have to worry about, not getting, rental income because it was corporate, right? So a lot of people were having issues with, I guess there was some kind of program where people weren't paying the rent and you couldn't kick them out because of the law order. So we didn't have to deal with any of that because it was all corporate. So it made it an insurance company.
Yeah. And then, they move in even as short term, 3 months, 6 months, they're in charge of the utilities. They turn it on. We don't. Actually, we made an exception for this current tenant now because they're supposed to move back to Italy and then he got a contract. And for them, they don't know when they're going to leave anytime soon. So they request, hey, can you keep the utilities in your name, but we reimburse you every month? So they're the first one that we made the exception, but we do nothing. Yeah. So that was the switch to that. But your question, so yeah, when we're on the road, that subsidized it, but it was mainly our reserves. I mentioned before, I think the biggest, greatest thing we had going for us was we were savers. So it was our reserve when we were traveling on the road. The dividends, so now Kurt and I have a lot of our funds. We have index funds or mutual funds, ETFs, but we don't touch it. We have set it up. We go through Vanguard, they're our broker. And so we set it up to where all dividends automatically we buy. We don't cash out on dividends, nothing. So it just grows. So for us, we just live off of the reserve that we have and whatever that the house made while we were on the road.
Yeah. Tell us about the lessons learned from that first flip. So this is the first project. Even though your sister was involved, you guys are still side by side working with two different totally perspectives on how to problem solve. So what was the lessons learned in that first project in Houston with working with your spouse?
Well, I think the good thing for us, we have a fine line between all, what the things that I do is more the technical side and she's more the design side.
Okay.
I can't even pick a color, so
Yeah.
I'm happily fine without picking any color. I have an opinion, to tell you I have opinions on things.
We had a lot of,
Yeah, but as far as decor or decoration or some of these crazy ideas she has, at first I don't see it, but then when she puts it together, it works. So she stays in her lane, I kind of stay in my lane. But
I think because with my sister's project, but I think with the first project with my sister, it wasn't so much challenges for us because there was a third party
that knew what she was doing.
that knew she was doing, that's navigating us. So Kurt kind of stay off on his side. I stay on my side with my sister, numbers wise, things like that, right? But the real challenges was when we came to New Orleans and it was just us. Yeah. And we have our partner, but New Orleans was when it was just truly the two of us in our mind. And that was when in New Orleans we were butting heads a lot. A lot of frustration. We were learning a lot. We disagreed on a lot of things because our personality is so different. So that was when I think after 6 months or so, we were just on edge all the time and walking on eggshells with each other. And finally, but we're decent communicators. So that's when I kind of looked at him and I said, okay, we need to regroup. I was like, because you and I right now, it's affecting you and I too much.
So tell us about that first one. Let's go a little bit deeper. So where did the deal come from? How did that where did the deal come from, and what did that process look like with you being completely on your own in New Orleans, the first project in New Orleans?
Oh, Huey P. Long.
Mm.
Yeah, we have our partner. We bought that. It was Huey P. Long. We bought it for like 75,000 or 76.
Where the deal came from?
The deal came from a wholesaler.
Okay.
So somebody, the wholesaler reached out to Zoo or his best friend. And then Zoo, this is when like Zoo is showing us the ropes. We just got here.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, Kurt, Mindy, I just got this call. Let's jump over there and check out this house. And they're asking for like 80. He got down to like 75. And I looked at the comps in the area and it was not there. Like we're talking about maybe 100,000, 110. Max was for that size was like 120. And we looked at the work and we're just like, is it worth it? But then we thought about it because the house wasn't in bad condition. So we did the numbers renovation. We're like, all in, we maybe like between 15 to 20,000. But on the sales side was 120. But we did everything cash. There was no lending. We had no holding costs. We paid nobody anything. So we're like, well, we're looking at it. It's like 3 weeks in and out. I'm cool with making 10 grand in 3 weeks. And so we asked Zoo, we're like, are you okay with making 10 grand in 3 weeks? He's like, yeah, all right, let's do it.
Yeah.
So that's how we pulled the trigger. Of course, it was our first project. Man, contractors, we were having issues with contractors, so double the time. But thank God it was a small project. So that was, I think, one of the saving grace was we chose such a small project for our first project to experience, to get our feet wet.
Yeah.
So our 3 weeks, projected completion turned into 6 weeks. But what was great was we have taste. We like things with quality. So by the time we start looking at comps, but as we were working on the house, the neighborhood there was sales, moving in the neighborhood. And we're like, hey, I think the comps is going up a little bit. And so we decided, let's spend a little bit extra money, make it a little bit nicer, because we start looking at the homes in Gretna in that particular pocket, Huey P. Long at 23rd Street. They were older and people weren't really renovating it nice. I think Anitra and I talked. She's like, oh, I love those neighborhoods. 'Cause you get to set new comps. And that was our first experience with that, because we actually end up setting record comps for that pocket in Gretna. So we made it nice, and we were thinking we're gonna sell for 120. We end up selling it for 149.
Yeah.
And
What year we talking? We still in COVID right now?
so yes, so that was 2021.
Okay.
That was 2021. So it was good. It was seller's market. Rates were low. Yeah, house went under contract within 1 or 2 days. Because we really made it nice, because for that area, there wasn't anything like it. And we took the risk. And we said, hey, people want to be on the Westbank. So it's like those small little calculated risks. I was like, somebody wants something nice,
Yeah.
but but nothing's like that. So let's just do it. And then so we end up, so Nelson, and we didn't know. So Nelson Salem, he does a lot of work. He's like, that's y'all's, huh? Y'all set a record for that little pocket over there. But yeah, so we end up selling it for 149. So thinking we were making 10 grand each, we end up making 25 each. So that was pretty nice. So that was our first project.
Yeah. So you talked about contractors. That was gonna be my next question. So when you come down, even though Zoom might have had a team, for you guys, you still had to vet contractors because it's your project. What routine have you developed now with finding contractors for your projects from those hard lessons learned back then? So now how do you guys find, vet, and select contractors for your projects?
Now we just use, now it's just people we know.
Mhm.
It's all word of mouth, because we've tried, helping the guy out that, he wants to try to do something with his company or anything like that, and we've got burned. I mean, everybody gets burned eventually, but now it's just really, we have our core group of people that we've been dealing with for a year, and our partners have the same, same crew. So we either get them from them or they'll get us from us.
Right.
Yeah.
But the real thing with contractors is, if you have a good contractor, Like we don't, like, if we have the budget, we won't haggle. Like, with a job that we could have did a bathroom and, you know, he wanted X amount of dollars. I told him, I said, look, if I have the budget, I'll give it to you. So I had it. So I gave him exactly what he wanted. He was happy and I'm happy. And he, you know, cause if we hag him every time, they're gonna eventually it's gonna get old, right? Get tiring. So I know his work. I know he, you know, he's gonna, at the end of the day, he back behind, you know, what he's gonna do and what he said he's gonna do. And that's really all I can ask for. And I know he's gonna do it right because I mean, I go to every. I'm not gonna do the work. The problem is I don't have time to do the work, and I've already got in trouble before for trying to do all the work
He
myself.
wants to be a handyman.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, gotta put him to work exactly.
Yeah. But you know what? But there's been a couple times recently, I say within this last year, where I had to venture out because I was dealing with stuff that I didn't have a contractor for. For example, I have to put in glass doors, shower glass doors. I don't have a glass contractor. So, and there's a few scenario like that. So what I did was I went on Google. I reach out, but I make sure I vet them. What's their online presence like? I am on their Facebook. I'm seeing what people are writing about them. I type their name into Google to see if anybody's reported or saying what they're saying about them on, you know, the Better Business Bureau. I go on Google Map. I want to see if there's reviews there. Shoot, even this one termite guy that came recommended by a very close contact of ours. I vetted him. I called the Department of Agriculture. And so the Department of Agriculture basically oversees all of the license for like all the pest control guys and termite guys, right? And I just couldn't find him online to give you an example. But he came so highly recommended. So I got his license number. I called the Department of Agriculture. The director came on the phone. Oh, Terrell? Oh, he's good. Oh, the director of the Department of Agriculture vetted for the, you know, vouched for him. And he's like, listen, he doesn't advertise. That's how good he is. He stayed busy year round. He's so good. You have to know somebody that has worked with him. And that's why he keeps his pricing. He's probably like, he's cheap. You didn't know his price is probably 60% of every other termite contract that quote I've gotten out there, you know? But listen, but it doesn't always work. I've vetted. So recently I'll share this and actually two, and I'll share Mills Lake, right? I did the same process for Mills Lake. And I think I took them here because they were young, they were eager. So I was like, hey, come and meet a lot of other investors that might be needing help. They're GC. The online presence, I mean, everything just looked legit and they were so good. They were great guys. It took a really bad turn and he took a lot of people's money. It was bad. And an iron guy too. I had an iron work guy recently that I hired. I mean, 5-star reviews, and it was a lot of reviews. It wasn't like 1, 2. So I was like, well, and I got a quote from him, just like I got a quote from everyone else. And I'm like, he's highly reviewed and his price falls more within our budget. We gave him a chance. I got contract, everything. And I mean, it was just, he was probably the worst welder we ever met.
Wow.
And I'm like, how did you get this reviews? Like, it was wild. So I do want to say that even when we had a process that worked, most of the time when we vetted new contractors, it ended up failing and it fell pretty bad too. But what saved us is that the contract. So now what worked for us ended up saving us is I make sure I have their IDs. If something goes wrong, I'm going to tell you right now, 3 weeks ago, we just got a check sent to us from the Court of Orleans, $4,600, because a contractor took us on for a ride 2 years ago. But I got his ID. I got a contract. I went to civil court. We sued him. And it took 2 years, but we got the check, you know? But at least we had all of that to fall back. If we needed to prove anything to anything, you need to have all of that.
Yeah.
So that's the best way but we're not just set because there's things come up sometimes. Actually, because sometimes there's work to be done, but our guys are held up and we have a lot of projects moving. At one point, we were having 7 projects going at a time. So we needed more guys. And so we needed to hire more. So that was the process. We did hire on a few new, and we end up keeping now.
Yeah.
Permanent.
So referrals, Google, vetting them online, then you guys make your selection.
Yes, contracts, make sure you have something written, have their ID, everything. So that way, if you need to sue them, if anything goes wrong, you have all their
So we
information.
counted that money going. And it's been 2 years, going back to the courthouse, they don't,
Yeah.
you know, he don't show up for court. It was a nightmare, but yeah, lo and behold,
You gotta
they
check with
gotta
the
take it.
police.
Yeah.
You got a ticket or something, you know, red light.
Yeah.
You get like a red light camera ticket every week. So
Yeah. So one of the biggest things I admire about the process that y'all have developed now is your due diligence. So like I never seen it before. I stole it, but I enjoy it. So yeah, I stole it. I stole the routine. So tell us about how you guys developed that due diligence system. So from Houston to now, far as getting an inspector, like describe your due diligence process and where did it come from and how does it help you guys save money on a project?
So I want to clarify, so due diligence from like, from acquisition to the renovation?
So so underwriting the actual house, not the numbers. So when you guys do a walkthrough from top to bottom, never seen anything like it before. Where did that come from? That process.
That came experience, so
Okay.
Kurt's very handy. So when we do a walkthrough on a house, first and foremost, he points out what he knows for sure. And then for me, from the woman's perspective, so this is the great part about being the husband, the female and male in this partnership. He's the practical guy. He's the technical guy. And I come in, I'm like, we need to move the kitchen. You know, we need to put like actually the Annette project, the Gentili project that Emil's currently listing for us. We went in and it was a shotgun house. It was like literally one room after another, and I'm like, well, we're gonna miss out 90% of the demographics that want to buy a house because of this floor plan. So I was like, we need walls, we need privacy. And Kurt's like, what? I'm like, yeah, we need to move the kitchen and we need to put up walls. I need bedrooms and I need closets, you know? So it that because when a buyer comes into the house, they're people. They're looking for a place to stay. And a lot of times is a lot, you know, I feel like I know that our property moves well, rent well, sold well, is because it was thoughtful. Because when we walked into there, we don't go, we stay within budget. Keep that in mind. We stay within budget. Okay, if this is our budget, what can we do to this house if we were gonna live here? So we really ask ourselves that. And even after renovation's done, we still walk through the house on the final touches. Like, if we live here, that's the main question, Kurt and I, if we live here, what will we do? Even if it comes to certain shelvings and things like that, the closet, right? One rod, most of the time, they just, a lot of homes I see listed, they want 300,000, but the closet is like a rod going across. I'm like, oh no. Like, I want a shelf, but it's cheap. You know, you can buy the Closet Aid packet that's already all panels already ready, and you just really screw it in, put it together, kind of like an IKEA thing. And they have like closet system that's so cheap. So on small closet, $150 comes with like one shelf, and you can, and they give you 3 rods. So on the left side, you can do a single rod for all the dresses and the long stuff. And then the right side, you do double rod. So things like, it's little things like that that doesn't cost a lot, but on the inside to sell and to rent, people living, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that it's resourceful.
yeah, but like for me, it's like 5 major things, like roof, plumbing, electrical, foundation, HVAC. I mean, that's gonna be a major hitter that's gonna cost you money.
Yeah.
And then you just call Ed and house calls,
Yeah.
houseCall.com.
Right.
But we rely a lot on the inspection. Because they were gonna get it. I mean, a lot of times we're gonna look at it, we have to make a decision that day. So we're gonna walk through the house, make a decision that day or that night to say, okay, we're gonna buy it or not buy it. So we can look at the major, kind of like the major item. And then even before we buy, we'll still call the inspector out and get a full list and say, okay, we're gonna knock all these things out that are deficiency that we didn't spend 5 hours going into the attic and climbing around. You know, so that does help the inspection.
And we kept track of our renovations.
Mhm.
So like from the plumbing, cosmetic, flooring. So Kurt and I actually spent a weekend putting all of that together for all the for the jobs that we've done. And we actually got a ballpark figure. So for example, flooring for us is $5 a square foot, labor and material. So when we walk into a house, with that in mind, when we walk into a house and it needs all new flooring, we have the square footage, we're multiplying it by 5, right? So we're like, okay, so right off the bat, if I have to make a quick decision, flooring, bam, 1,000 square feet, five grand on flooring. If it needs HVAC or previous, it's 7, how many ton, 3 ton costs us 7 grand right there. And so we study our renovation costs, but then at the end, just so we don't get in trouble, I always add 25% contingency. So when we first started out, I was doing 30% contingency because we missed a lot. But with that 30% contingency, it saved us. So we never really been in trouble with renovation. But the more as we're doing this and we're still keeping notes and record and still studying our updates on costs and especially current. So with that in mind, we're keeping all of that current. Now we're pretty down to about 5% contingency because we're like dead on. And material, Curtin, like we're literally, he has Lowe's and Home Depot pull up. Okay, we're doing this. What is it? Like sheetrock. What are we looking at? Because wood at one point, and still is so much fluctuation. So we do a lot of due diligence because you get in trouble with that renovation. So a lot of due diligence is from our experience, from whatever notes and whoever we can call for help. Like we're never hesitate to ask anyone for help.
Well, like door, I mean, how much for a door used to be $74, pre-hung. Now they're $140.
Double.
Same door. So I mean, a lot of things have changed over the years as far as material costs and labor. Labor's gone up a little bit, not as much as material. So we still have to go back. I mean, even though we have numbers from a previous job, we still kind of have to look at current pricing from Lowe's or Depot or even the number of things like that. We call around and try to get some ballpark of what the price is.
Yeah, the resources here, for example, Ed from House Call, the inspector, he's amazing. So sometimes we come across a situation where I'm like, do we have to replace this? So, but I was like, actually, what was it? Recently, insulation. We have to put insulation up. That was huge and was last minute. And we're like, man, that's gonna be like $2 grand more. And so Kurt's like, do we need it? And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna call Ed because is it code? Is it mandatory on the inspection side? When we go to sell, does the house require insulation? If they requires it, we have to do it. If it doesn't require it, we'll just let it roll. And if they ask for it, we'll do it. So we called Ed and he was like, you have to do it. So we bit the bullet because we have to, so last minute we did that, but all the resources, anybody we can call to make sure we have our ducks in line.
Tell us a little bit about financing. So as partners, right? So what's some of the advantages that y'all have with working together with financing? So all of the costs as far as underwriting. So when you guys purchase a property, by working together, what's some of the savings or some of the advantages you get that help you buy a property?
We could know.
So is it credit?
Right?
So
Not have W-2. So
exactly.
It's more difficult for us to get lending. So we do hard,
Mhm.
hard money lenders with, and they basically need to know my, they show a snapshot, I guess, my bank account
Mhm.
and my credit score.
Oh, so for us doing this, that's the one thing Kurt and I were like, we're contemplating getting a W-2 just so that we can borrow normal money.
Well, real quick. So it's funny, I'm gonna put Steven on the spot here. So back in the day, I was so against rental. Right, I bought up the house I was going to live in. You put down your 20%, the conventional loan, put down 20%, renovated it, and now I'm waiting on my rent money to pay me back, which never does because you have something that goes wrong. Well, Steven over there talking about this BRRRR program that I never heard about. One of the first meetings I'm here, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just leveraging on the interest rate." I'm like, "Oh, yeah."
Yeah.
And she said something about it before in the past, and I'm like, oh, right? It doesn't sound too good to be true.
Yeah.
But basically getting all your money back. So we did on one of the house in Algiers. We
Yeah.
bought it, put the money, renovated it, took all the money back plus like 15,000,
Yeah.
kept 70%. We put out 70%, still kept 30, I think. for
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
And the cash flow is like $500 a month.
Yeah.
And I have no money in it. They actually paid
Yeah.
me to buy
We
it.
thought it was a scam.
Yeah.
We
And
thought the bird process was a scam.
yeah.
He was like, "Ah, it's too good to be true." What you mean? But it was actually everyone here motivated us because at that point, until that point, everything was cash. Everything was cash. And but we saw, but when we start coming here and hearing everyone about lending, hard money, this process, and then that's when the wheels started turning. And we're like, man, we just missed out two great opportunity that we could net a ton, but we didn't have any more cash. And that's when we start looking at the whole lending process. At that point, we didn't even know 2021, no, 2022, we just learned that you can cash out refi.
Yeah.
I'm dead serious, like doing all of this because we weren't in real estate. So we didn't know. So this whole Kurt and I really thought the cash out refi was a scam. So we didn't do it. But then I started making calls and there was the lenders and they brought up, we're like, well, babe, let's make some phone calls. We didn't, like I said, we have no trouble asking questions. We started calling banks and lenders and they're like, yes, we can give you up to 75% of your equity back. And we're like, what? And that's when I put it on paper and we were still analysis paralysis and we never done it before. And Kurt and I, when it comes to money, it's our hard-earned money. We think 3, 4, 5 times before we jump into something, But once it clicked, like Kurt said, we tried on the first project. Dang, we gained a property. We got 15,000 back. What is this? And cash flow. So on that house in Algiers, I think we're cash flowing like 500 a month, 200. And I'm like, holy smoke, this works. But the numbers has to work. But once the numbers came together, I'm like, I gave it to Kurt and I'm like, look at this. Like these are real numbers. If we buy for this, we already know our renovation cost. And I looked at comps in the area and I'm doing 75% cash out. I was like, we're gonna get some money back. And he was like, well, let's send it to our lender. If that works for them, then let's do it. And they're like, we're happily do business with you. And we're just like, wow. So once we went to the closing table and we got that check back and he was like, okay, you got a believer. And Larry, Steven, like, Larry, I was like, what do you mean, burr? Steven,
So what's the challenge with that right now though? So what was good about it back then? And is it easier or harder with the new climate to do the same method? What changed?
Yeah, interest rate, insurance, for sure. I think everyone's experienced the same, but that's why now we're even pickier with selecting properties. We're vetting numbers back and forth.
Mhm.
It has to work and it can't be $100-200 net because next week New Orleans decide to actually on one of our property, Orleans decide to increase our property value by how much? 100%. Yeah, in the 7th ward, they decide 100%. So
For the people that don't understand that, when they jack up your property values, how does that impact the cash flow as an investor? What changes?
your tax double.
Okay. Yep.
Basically, because they increase our property value, they work on a percentage. So it's basically you pay your tax percentage times your property value. And if your property value double, then your tax overnight just double. So now whatever that is, so for us, it jumped from yeah. So for basically per month, right now it's going to cut into like $200 more. So if you were cash flowing like $100-200, oh no, yeah. And then if insurance change too, you're gonna be in trouble. So right now, but So right now, that's the situation. So we're just running our numbers real tight. And then on top of that, just so you, we're gonna throw, apparently we've been having this conversation and a couple of investors friend didn't know. Our saving grace is that Kurt's a vet, so we have USAA. All of our rental property is through USAA. And all the quotes, the last 2 years we got USAA have been every quote by 40%. So if you can get into UAA, there's a vet in your family, there's somebody that can get you USAA, do it. Just find a way and call USAA, because honestly, and that has been the edge for us on the insurance side. So you and I, so Emil, we went to look at a property in Mid-City a week ago. And that right now with that, we know we have the edge over other investors, because that insurance is gonna kill them, but we pay 40% less than they do. And then plus on top of that, our renovation, I mean, our relationship with our guys, we save a lot of money on our renovation. So we have that edge where we can compete. We can pick up properties that other investors can't. So if you, on that note, if anywhere at all, can, USAA, that's a big saving.
Yeah. But you guys still travel a lot. So for the people that feel like they can't leave their projects, they have to babysit the job site. What systems have y'all put in place to where you don't have to be as hands-on as you was when you first started, you know, in New Orleans anyway, in 2020, 2021? How do you guys get that peace of mind and still be on the road and still have projects going on?
We're still pretty handy over here.
Mhm.
Lately we haven't really taken, I mean, 2 weeks, I think, recently, just 2 weeks we bought a loan that, but we have like cameras in the house. The crews that are going there, people we trust and know. We usually we'll hold off on any new contractors if we're not there. Like for instance, the welder that came, I mean, we were there pretty much every day, you know, just on location, just to kind of see what's going on and things like that. But, yeah, I mean, we really need somebody boots on the ground. Whether it's even calling you, your friends, like, hey, can you pass over here, check this out for me, things like that. That helps. But that's really the only, and really, it's the people that you have.
But I think also for us, because we're prepared. So for example, if they have sheetrock coming up, right, flooring, we're ordering it ahead of time. I'm communicating constantly with them. Hey, what's coming up? You're finishing this up. What is the next 3 days? He said, well, for the next 3-4 days, we're working on this. Cool. I'm putting all together material list, the big part, the major items, and we're putting it on order. Lowe's, Home Depot. I have them as the pickup people. And at the end of the day, they send pictures. We request pictures, so our guys are getting a hang of sending us updates, pictures. Hey, and we're contractors. If you leave them to their own device, they could drag things out. But smart contractors, honestly, they want to be in and out. But a lot of guys, they could drag things out or go pick up another project. But I also don't tell them I'm out of town, you know, because, you know, when mom and dad is out of town. So I try not to, but only one or two really trusted guy that just in case they need us. And, you know, we're like, hey, we're not here, but we trust them. But yeah, communications, pictures, but I always ask them, give me a timeline. Because when they hear a timeline, they know they're being held to a timeline. So I get to be not here, but I'm like, hey, is day 2 out of 3, where you at? Are we still on schedule? And every day, honestly, in the morning, we check in like, what do you need from me to make your life easier? You know, because you need any more materials? What do you need? I put that in order. I mean, having the accounts with all the stores, you know, the material, you know, Home Depot, and it's such a convenient. So we have everything on pickup for them, and I call them ahead of time so that before Kurt and I go off, you know, to go like do an excursion or something, we wake up in the morning, we have coffee, we message our guys, what do you need? And if they say don't need anything, cool. Well, send me pictures later. Let me know you need anything. But if you do, we have it all set up for them. So that's been for us this past year. I said that has worked really well, and we're not there. And there's been projects now that we show up only to do the walkthrough. We came mid-project and we came at the end to do a final walkthrough and pay them.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I don't think we do, I mean, we don't do any job like by the day or by the hour. Everything's a job call. So they're gonna do a bid, and then we'll basically say, okay, from this bid, how many days is it gonna take? We buy all the material. It's rare that we let anybody buy material. We buy all the material, and have it either delivered or they can pick it up or we'll drop it off. So that we can control, they're not going out and buying stuff that they don't buy it. Or say they're gonna buy stuff and don't buy it, right?
Yeah.
We've had that before where we paid money to buy, lumber, $4,600 worth of lumber,
Yeah.
and it never showed up for the job.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So we buy all the material, really the relationship with God. And that's as much as we keep saying, I mean, I have a great crew that,
And I do want to add, if you have a process that works, stick to it, don't deviate. So the few times that I try to deviate from it, even our most trusted guys, it doesn't work. Like for example,
What you mean?
so for example, I don't do down payment, I don't do deposits. You need materials to get started, I'll buy all the material. If they want money up front and I don't know you and I haven't done a couple projects with you, that's not happening because there's plenty of other that's just how it works in the contractor world. Because if you're willing to I'm gonna sign a contract, you're gonna hold me accountable for everything. But so that has worked. The few times that I've strayed away from that, or you know what? Here's a good that didn't work out. But really, I hold a retainer 25%. I'm not paying you until I do my final walkthrough. Everything's good. I pay you the final payment. Always worked. The job's done, everything's done as supposed to, and then I pay them. It worked. One of it happened twice, actually a lot. But right now we're putting our feet down. We're not doing it. Two of our very trusted contractors done a lot of work with us. I said, hey, we're gonna travel. So they were gonna wrap up on a Saturday. Friday, we're flying out. We're gonna go ahead. We trust you. So they're at 90% completion already. So I'm cutting them the check. We come back 5 days later, it's not done. But and we've worked with them forever. And then the excuses, because once they really have the money and they see something that weekend when they were supposed to wrap up our project, they got the money. They knew we weren't going to be there. They picked up something else and went make money. Oh, I'll come back Monday and Tuesday to do. And we've actually I end up cutting ties with the two. And I felt like it was my fault because the process we had in place with them worked and they worked well. And then because I went and deviate from it and they became untrusting to us. And then, and it just didn't work out well like that. So that's what I meant. If you have a process, even as the most trusted people you worked with, stick to it. There's no exception. Of course, there's going to be one here and two there, but it has to be very, very exceptional.
Yeah. What about the communication style between each other, right? Because 7 projects going on at one time. How do you guys make sure that the contractors don't try to kind of pit you two against each other? Well, Minnie said this, or Kurt said this, or this and that. What communication style do y'all use to make sure with any partnership could other people use to make sure that doesn't happen to where the contractors or anybody else mix you two up with your communication?
I'm gonna say whatever she said, Bill.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. So is it like group text or using WhatsApp? What do you guys use to maintain communication between each other?
I think the biggest thing that really worked for Kurt and I, and also when we have a partner, is holding each other accountable. We meet weekly if we can, or if we can, we're on a conference call. We have to-do lists each week, right? Item 1, 2, 3, 4. We go down the list. Which one do you guys want to take? If Zoo is taking item A and B, I'm taking C, we putting your name next to it. So there is a name next to each to-do item. So by the time the next week that we're having another call or another meeting, hey, where is this at? We're holding each other accountable. And even as husband and wife, that's what we do. We sit down, each night if we can. We have our list, we update it. Hey, where are you with this? And we write down percent of completion, or do you need my help? And so that has worked really well for us. As in getting things done, holding each other's accountable and moving the project along. But communication wise with each other is, because since we have job assignment, so it comes with the contractor. So let's say if that item A is plumbing, Kurt is dealing with plumbing. They know that if it's plumbing, they don't come to me. So because of that, there is no overlapping. Well, Mindy says this and I say this, but also we're very good where we set ground rules. We respect each other and we want to make sure our contractors respect us. So if they tried that before, they're like, hey, well, Mindy, because they tried to say, because Kurt was like, hey, why isn't it done the way it's supposed to, with Javier? And he was like, well, Mindy said that was okay. And then Kurt called me and I'm like, I absolutely did not tell him that was okay. I didn't even talk to him about it.
Yeah.
We're going to call him right now. And so so now we're really good. They come to us from like, no, I don't deal with that. Kurt handles that. So you talk to him about it.
Yeah.
So
The technical is me. If there's anything outside of that,
yeah.
design her, whatever.
Yeah, but if they try to pull a fast one on us, we're like, no. If that what she told you, that's it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna get ready for questions in a little while. So right now, how are you guys looking at the market? Are you still buying? And what's your plans for the future? Next 12 months. Let me be more specific. So next 12 months. So, but are you buying right now? And what is the next 12 months like on the real estate side?
Something comes to us that we can't pass up, I think we'll buy. We are looking at different avenues. Virtual capital is one of them. Break of the day with Joe Fang is another one we're looking at. So we're doing actually some stuff with virtual capital now.
But we're investing with Vertical, with Elridge and Anitra, because our plan is that our ultimate goal is we want to be as passive as possible. That's our ultimate goal. Because Larry, Kurt, and I, we don't have kids. We want to be on the road. We want to travel, enjoy us.
Yeah.
That's our ultimate goal. And the 10% is really to pick up passion projects only. So that's why the last 12 months and being here, like we've talked a ton, like we hear. So like with Vertical Capital, for example, actually it was by accident. I was on the phone with Anitra and she had just came from California. They were trying to get funding, right? They were trying to raise funding in California. And then a light bulb came on and I asked Anitra, I'm like, hey, Anitra, do you guys accept individual investors into Vertical Capital?
So she said,
yes, we do. And but that was the first time it never thought to me like you borrow from lenders, but I never thought to invest in lenders. She's like, yeah, we do, Mindy. I was like, oh, so in my mind, I'm like, oh man, what's this number? It's going to be a lot. And I'm like, well, what is the minimum for an individual investor to invest into Vertical Capital? She said 50,000. Yeah, 50,000. And I told Kurt, and honestly, it took us a while because like we have to understand the process. But so with Vertical Capital, for example, we watch them here locally, interact with people, and we trust them. And I've actually tried to borrow from them, but man, she's tight with money. She's tight with money, man. And I'm like, I can't afford that. No, okay, I can't borrow money from you then.
Yeah.
But because us trying to borrow money from them, I learned how she was working. So when it came to that, I trusted her process. And then learning about, of course, hanging out with this group, we learn something every time. That's when we learn about the self directed IRA, where you can invest your IRA and 401k into real estate. And so our first move, we finally pulled the trigger, with Vertical, and we actually invested in Vertical with an initial amount, and it's through the IRA. Yeah, and then of course, and then we're also learning. So Joe Fang, he just moved, but he was one of the sponsor for the first
Investor Fest. Yeah.
Break a Day. Basically, their syndication, and you also can invest in the syndication completely passive. We haven't jumped on it yet because we're trying to find or downturn to actually learn more about it before we push money into it. But literally right now, we are picky, like Kurt said, because the market right now, it has to be really good because we're trying to find a point where we really more than anything is we're brainstorming how to make more money passively and only focus on passion project. For example, like passion project for us is like we love low housing, low cost housing. So we try to do a lot of projects that's under $200,000.
Yeah.
So we love those projects, small projects. But mainly that's our focus right now. So I'm still actually I met up coffee with Anitra last week, picking her brain,
Yeah.
and maybe hopefully we can do something else, do more. Because now that I think we're probably month 4, 5, they're paying out our interest every month. And Kurt's like, they give him all our money. And I was like, no, I was like, we can't, not yet. We don't have that kind of nest egg to do that yet, but ultimately I would love that. So learning that process recently,
Good.
that was another piece of knowledge that we gained to how to invest in with the lender and invest in notes. So next thing for us is learning how to invest in syndication. And then at the same time, we're keeping an eye out for strategic properties. For example, gray area, because we want to hold. Right now with more hold, there's no flip. So we want to hold, but we want to hold an area that has a very high chance of high appreciation, like mid city. So that's why you and we saw that pop, that double in mid city, because mid city is right by Bayou St. John. So if I can buy it right by Bayou St. John, you're good. We're trying to find something in uptown, so kind of those pockets where. So we got. Yeah.
Well, I guess now we're basically helping friends and family. So,
Yeah.
To keep our guys busy so we're not picking up anything. We just really word of mouth. Just like my good friend was doing wings at his mom, his mom's kitchen, his cousin's rental house is the bathroom. My other cousin's grandmother, her room.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just keep my guys, going and moving.
But that's how sick we are. Like that's fun. Like that's so fun for us staying busy. We love going out, to check the projects, but we're slowing down. We're really enjoying the slow time right now.
Yeah.
Because when we know that, so right now it's just research.
Yeah.
Research, putting it together, regrouping, re-strategizing. What more can we do smartly?
Yeah.
And then when we're in this low, right? We're on a swing. So when we're ready to jump off, we can. So we're preparing for that.
Okay. And we're about to take questions, but I have one more. So I'm glad you said that. How do you describe the opportunity of now? Because a lot of people moan and groan and they say it's interest rates, insurance, stuff like that. But what's the opportunity that you're seeing from your perspective that people can take advantage of right now?
I'd say buy now. I mean, I would buy because you can haggle the seller, refinance later. I mean, I got some properties that are 8.5%, 9%, 10%.
Yeah.
I'll deal with it now. I got a property cheap enough where my ARV on the private I sold is probably 75% increase. So eventually when the rates go down, I'll refinance.
Yeah.
I mean, the money I'm putting in now, the first 7 years of your loan is all interest anyway. So who cares?
Yeah. So right now for us, we're seeing nothing but it's opportunities. They're so desperate, but because so Kurt and I, for us, or mental health or relationship or marriage is very important to us. Time with family and loved one is very important to us. So we know that we could always make more money, but the other things you can't make more of. You're gonna lose time out with family and those loved ones, the occasions, the graduations, the wedding. So for us right now is we're this slow time, but you should be greedy. Like what I'm seeing right now is you can haggle, like you can just, they're so desperate. So I'm seeing like people are worried if we're seeing a lot of people that are really worried. I'm like, I told Kurt, I was like, man, if we weren't trying to really like just relax and just regain, just to kind of recompose and re-strategize, we'd be very greedy. We'd be out there just lowballing everybody. Yeah, and you know what? It's gonna hit. Something's gonna hit. And then if you get it low enough right now, like Kurt is saying, don't be scared. If you get it low enough, the numbers work. Pay insurance, pay tax, refinance later. Who cares?
Yeah.
And I think Tyler and I just stumbled this earlier chatting over there. He's like, well, if I cash out right now, interest is high. And then if I refinance, there's that prepayment penalty. Who cares? It's literally a few percent because it's 5 years, right? So they do a digression. So it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So who cares if it's 4%, 3%? But if you're able to get it much lower later on, pay the penalty. The numbers work, but make sure the numbers work. So we were just discussing that, but right now, it's as an investor, you should be very
I
greedy.
mean, look at 2007 and 2008, when it crashed. I could have bought property all day long in Houston for dirt cheap. And I was thinking of selling the property I had. I mean, look, I didn't. It's worth 3 times as much.
Yeah, and like to give you an idea, the property Kurt is talking about, he actually overpaid for it.
Yeah, I told you 2007, I paid 134 for it. Overpaid for it.
Over-
134.
The land now is worth 400,000. And in the last, it's real estate, right? So in the last 10, actually 6 to 8 years, 5 years ago, the neighbor, a developer bought the neighbor, demoed it, so sold it for 1.1. All of a sudden, this hood neighborhood, he bought for 135, double paid, overpaid. Now the land is worth 400. And right now, investor for the last 6 years, they're just buying up that neighborhood because it's such a strategic position in the city. It's highway accessible. So neighbors are literally like right now under contract is 1.5, 1.6, 1.4. So what we end up doing was we're actually taking a loss on that rental right now because I took more money out. We cash out refi on that property because it's just worth the land. It's just worth so much. So the rent that we're getting right now doesn't even cover the note. It's like, like $300 less. But this is where the investor mindset and the numbers it's the business mindset. So our calculation, we sat down with the neighborhood right now. You've been renting out since what year?
2007.
Yeah. So the note now, how much? We're honest. We're very transparent. So we're gonna share it with you. How much do we owe on it right now? 70?
Well, then you find it as well.
Oh yeah. Well, he owed like 70 something on it. So when we start coming here and learning about the whole word process, I'm like, I'm gonna cash out. It's worth so much. But the cash out, we took over 200,000 out. But the rent is like 1,400. It doesn't cover it. I said, but I'm demoing this. I'm building this in 2 years. I was like, but the net that or other rental in Houston is cash flowing like 1,500 a month. So the Houston 2 properties there, we still netting, So I did that calculation. So we're not looking at as one property. Oh, we're taking a loss $200 per month on that. No, the other one can cover it, but it's strategic. We actually took that cash out and turned it into 3, 4 properties and leverage that as our cash. And that's when we start going into lending and leveraging that cash. And so it's worth it for us. It was worth it. But then 2 years, I'm demoing anyway. It has a 5-year prepayment penalty. I'm okay. I'll pay 2%. Come year 3, year 4 when we develop it and sell it.
If I would have known what I known back then, I would have bought 5 houses in the same location. But
Mhm.
again, I was waiting for my rent money to pay me back my 20% and my renovation cost. He even told me about the bird process. And I still-
Where were you, Steve?
So, I mean, if I did that, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I could easily bought property all day long for 80 grand. in 2008 when it crashed. And these are single family homes that were in decent shape. Not like I had to do major renovation, but it was just bottoming out. And then I was barely even covering my note. I think 2008, 2009, all the way to maybe 2012, I would have to put maybe $100, $50 a month to cover my note. And I was to the point where I'm like, I bought it for 134. It's worth 98 now because of the crash. Maybe I just get rid of it for when I got into it and walk away. But I guess I was just too lazy to just sell it. I just kept hanging on to it. I mean, I had a renter. I never really had a spot where I didn't really have a rental in there.
Yeah.
So it was just in the middle of the city. So, lucky. I got lucky. But I could have been even luckier if I had 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I guess I can't even play like I won.
So the moral is real estate is cyclical. If you can't hang in there, just hang in there.
Oh, we're gonna be the last hood house in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Cause if we're talking about multi-million-dollar houses, and I told Kurt, I'm like, as long as we can afford the tax on this property, we're just gonna hold on to it. And you're gonna have these millionaires living next door, and we're renting out to like a really sweet family for like, and it's a really strategic point. They've been great tenant for us. We make no money on it. We never have. For them, the whole purpose of them being there was to pay the note. We hold on to that property for the appreciation. And so I told her, as long as we can afford the taxes, we're gonna pay. But you got these rich people living around this small family that's renting in the middle of the city of Houston for $13.50 a month. And they're like, who are these people? I'm like, we're gonna be the last hood house in this neighborhood.
I think my neighbor's house is like 4,800 square feet. My neighbor, mine's 1,100 square feet. So I mean, it's a little no garage, little. Well, 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom. But the location.
Yeah. Same thing here for New Orleans. We got in down by the Marigny. So kind of the same scenario. So it's just, up taking all the pieces, conversations with everyone here, and we keep an open mind. And we never I never oh no, I already know about that. Really?
Well, like me growing up here, I never would have thought I would have bought a house in Lower Ninth Ward.
Yeah.
Never. I mean, I've been 4 or 5 projects over there now.
Yeah.
I love it over there. But I would never thought. I mean, just things change. I mean, when you hang on to it long enough, you're gonna make money. I mean, you can bear the taxes and all the maintenance and the holding costs, but
So wholesalers, they have houses in the lower ninth ward. You got at least one buyer. Yeah. We're gonna take questions from the audience. Just raise your hand. Questions?
Oh,
business partner.
oh, nah. Yeah, because we're gonna demo the house. It's gonna be demoed. So there's no point we don't want to put any. Yeah. Yes, actually, okay, so I mean, great question, because we thought by the time when we turned our main home into the midterm rental, we were cash flowing so much and we made such good money. And we loved working with corporations and insurance companies. So I told him, hey, the lease is coming up. I'm gonna convert it to a furnished rental. But then the long-term plan, because that's short-term. So we discussed the short-term goals for that house. But when the long-term goal came, it contradicted it. Because where we're gonna roll the dice, spend a spine, Facebook Marketplace, I get secondhand stuff, furnish it. Great, I'm gonna cash flow, several more $100 on the house. But I'm also rolling the dice if someone's gonna be a good tenant. Because these people been in there.
Well, not only that, for furnished houses, I mean, for us, our experience, it's only been like 6 months. The contract is literally 6 months. 9 times out of 10, they'll extend it another 3 to 6 months again after their 6 months over.
Maybe.
But
A bit more work. Yes.
right.
And we just want to be completely hands off on that. So that's why we kept them.
And the only reason why the other one's furnished because we got no place to put our stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally the only reason why it's furnished.
Yeah, we didn't want to pay storage. So we're like, let's put it to you.
We paid for a 5x5 storage for like 2.5 years
Yeah.
on our stuff that we wanted to make sure that was, safeguarded. All the other stuff like the bed, we didn't care about the bed or the coffee table or the nightstand, whatever it may be. We didn't care. So if they destroyed it, it wouldn't be a big deal. but that was basically the thought process of, well, the reason why we're furnishing this house is because we don't know where to put our storage. To get a 10 by 10 would be double the price. We're still paying $130 a month for a storage unit. And that's a 5 by 5. So it just didn't make sense.
We're doing that here. We're doing that here, but right when Fogger, right, one of our property, we were like, you know what, it works so well for us in Houston, so we actually started in New Orleans. And right when we did that, the whole Airbnb situation happened. So now there's a lot of furnished homes on the market, you know, in New Orleans. So
Yeah.
we'll figure it out, you know, but we kept costs low. So everything is manageable. We pay all the notes. We're still cash flowing, so we're not worrying.
So I just want to say kudos to you guys for pursuing that freedom and peace and what success looks like for you. Because a lot of people see the deals you've done and the money you make on deals, but they don't see, you know, how can this get me with family? How can I live like the lifestyle stuff where it's more time freedom and stuff. So kudos to you, because that's the message really resonates with me. So I appreciate y'all for sharing that part.
Probably got time for like one more question because we're going pretty late. Who's got a good question? We'll wrap it up then because we went on. That was awesome, guys. Thank you.